So we'll get started. Hi everyone, and thank you for joining if you have just joined us. And as other people come in, we'll just let them in. And again, if you want to put your camera on, you can. If you don't, you don't have to, so that's absolutely fine. So good morning, ladies, and welcome to Crimson's Women in Tech Forum. So those of you who know us already, our forum has been going about a year and a half now. So I set it up with the want to network with women, but also create a community, because I was doing a lot of events and networking and creating forums, and often there'd be only one or two women there, and often then women would say to me, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there's more women? And I thought, I agree, I'll try and get everyone together so that we're all in this together, can learn from each other, but also set up a nice forum of support and where we can bounce ideas off each other and also help each other grow and network as well as we move forwards in our careers. So I'm Keisha. If you haven't met me before, I know a lot of you have, but some haven't. And if you're new here, welcome and thank you for joining us. We've also got Emma and Nick, but I'll introduce them shortly. So a little bit about Crimson and who we are. So we were established in 2001, so this is our 20th year. We are a recruitment, so an IT recruitment and also a solutions company. We're a Microsoft Gold partner, and as of a couple of years ago, we are part of the Harvey Nash Group as well. So they are our parent company. We also run several IT leadership forums throughout the year. So we have things like the CIO candidate workshop, CIOs that are looking for a new role. We obviously have the Women in Tech group. Then we also have things like architecture exchange. And usually we have many in-person meetups like wine tasting events, cocktail making. You can tell that I created most of these, but obviously right now we're just doing webinars, but soon we'll be going back to in-person hopefully. So do keep an eye out for the emails, because as soon as we can, I'll make sure that we are. But for now, thank you for joining us on the webinar. So a little bit about the forum. As I mentioned, we were set up a year and a half ago, Women in Tech. So our first one was in Birmingham, which is a little picture of us back there. That was most of us at a wine tasting venue. And we have speakers at each event, whether that's online or offline, so that we can learn and also network, get to know each other, and then hopefully engage with each other after and build a nice community. So open discussion, so do share your ideas if you feel that you want to, but also find solutions, and it is very supportive. So no judgment, and we don't want it to be that kind of group where we are judging. It's more around supporting. So if there's anything that you want to talk around, then please do. And if there's anything for future topics that you want us to talk around, then also send them through, because I'm more than happy to do that, because it's about what you want to get from it as opposed to what I want to say. It's what do you actually want to learn about, what do you want me to find speakers on, or even if you know of any good speakers, it's all about making this community as good as possible. So here's me on the left, we've got Emma and Nick, so I'll introduce both of the speakers and then hand over to them. Of course my dog wants to bark at this time, working from home vibes. So today's amazing speaker, I'm really excited for this one. I think it's just what we need. So we've got the amazing Nick Saunders, who is a happiness coach. So Nick specialises in coaching women one-to-one and workforce engagement. Through her coaching and studies in positive psychology and neuroscience, Nick helps people achieve dreams and ambitions and become the best and most authentic version of themselves. And the topic that she'll be discussing is positive psychology, and she'll also be giving you some really good key takeaways. So I'll hand over to her shortly. And also then we have Emma after Nick. So Emma is a certified strengths coach practitioner with background in sales, marketing and management in the IT industry, well in brands like BT and HP. And she'll be talking about strengths and energizers, really how to unlock them and how to place your strengths as well. So what I want to say also with this, after I hand over, is try and be, if you've got any questions, do ask them in the chat window, or also put your hand up, whatever you feel most comfortable with. But we want it to be as engaging as possible, to meet as many people as possible. And before we do move over to the speakers, if you are able just to put in the chat window a little introduction so that we can all know who you are. So your name, what you do, and if you're open to connecting, if you've got a LinkedIn URL or a profile that you want to connect people to, then please do put that in there, because it's all about building your network. So name, what you do, and if you're open to connecting, just a link to your LinkedIn profile, and I'll do the same shortly. Perfect. So I will hand over to you, Nick, and I'll stop sharing my screen so you can share yours.
So yes, thanks for the lovely intro. I've got some slides to share, but I want it to be quite interactive as well, to get a bit of chat going on. So positive psychology, I'm going to talk about some tools to increase happiness and resilience. So before we kick off with that, I want to know a little bit about you in terms of what your experience is, so that I can kind of tailor the presentation a little bit. So if we could get the first poll up, I'm really interested to know, what's your biggest challenge right now as a woman or a female leader in tech? So if the lovely Holly can help me out with that, that would be brilliant. If you see me looking off screen, it's because I'm on 2 separate devices to be able to monitor the chat. So we've got a few options there: being taken seriously due to gender, a conservative career perspective as part of because of being a part-time employee, the glass ceiling, which is a common one I think that most people encounter, sexism, having no female role model, gender pay gap. And if there's anything else, if those don't apply and there's something else, then feel free to pop it in the chat. Let's have a look how we're doing. The numbers are creeping up. I'll give it a minute. So we've got a few responses in. So being taken seriously due to gender is quite popular. That's still increasing. Having no female role models, almost even Stevens with that one. And some people voting for sexism. Okay, that's an interesting mix. So I got these suggestions from another poll that happened last August. So I was just interested to see if things had shifted at all. That's great. So my next question, and a new poll, I'm not going to survey you out, don't worry, there's only 2 polls, is how are you feeling about that? So there's a whole range of emotions that we might experience when we feel things aren't going our way, we're not happy in the environment that we're in. So I've got a little sliding scale there, if Holly can put the poll up for us. So everything from that sort of disgruntlement and aggrievement, where things feel unfair. Maybe you're feeling sort of isolated and alone because there's that lack of relatedness in the environment. Maybe it's disappointed and a bit downhearted. Sometimes it can impact our confidence as well. So you might be feeling a bit unsure of yourself, lacking confidence because of not being able to have that autonomy, which is really important in the workplace, I think. But you may also be at the other end of the spectrum where you're feeling accepting about it and quite perseverant, trudging through, ploughing on. And then at the far end of the spectrum there, you might be feeling really determined and quite gritty and just kind of, you know, flying with it. A lot of women that I know in the tech industry tend to be really quite ballsy women, really strong women, who set great examples in the industry. So you might be at that end of the spectrum. Just say it's a mixed bag then. So there's a range of different feelings and emotions about this. So what I want to do with this presentation is to show you how you can work on improving any negative feelings that you've got, how you can feel more positive emotions, and how you can also increase your resilience and your ability to cope when you do feel those negative emotions. So it's about giving you some tools for that toolkit. So yes, I am all about helping women to develop unshakable belief, kick-ass confidence, so that they can achieve their goals and live a life that's just happier, more fulfilling, and without that fear of judgment or failure, because I think that's something that we all succumb to at some point in our lives or in our careers. I feel like the career chose me rather than me choosing it. I sort of slid into it from my HR background. And I've become really passionate about it because it's born out of my own struggles and my own challenges and my own doubts and lack of self-belief. And that's made me really passionate to be able to help other women to break through that, because I think if you can nail the confidence piece, feel good about yourself, you can do anything ultimately. So I got to where I am in terms of being more confident, being more resilient, because of 2 significant events in my life. So the first one was about 14 years ago, 2006, when my mum passed away. So obviously that was a really life-changing chapter in my life, led me down quite a sad path. You know, there was that feeling of loss, uncertainty, where am I going, what's the point of all this? And the second event was last year when I lost my job. So I loved this job. I thought it was my dream job, invested all of myself into it. My identity was tied up in it. I didn't realise that at the time. That's something I've discovered more recently. So yeah, it was a really sort of lethal blow for me. And on both of these significant events, I noticed that I hit this crossroads. So I had three choices. I could either stay down and kind of wallow in it. I could get up, get back on the horse, carry on what I was doing, or I could do something different. I could bet on myself. I could take a chance and do something extraordinary, or at least extraordinary for me. And that's what I did both times. And that's really sort of inspired me and developed this appetite within me to keep on doing that, to keep on pushing those comfort zones, because every time you push your comfort zone, it stretches out a little bit further, and what you can do and what you can achieve also stretches out further. I discovered positive psychology, and that's been amazing for me. So this is a branch of psychology that is solely devoted to what makes us become our best selves, and I love that. So yes, so it's working out really well. Sometimes it's crazy scary, don't get me wrong, it's not all roses, but that's the thing about stepping out of your comfort zone, isn't it? It's all about sort of growing and expanding. So that's why I'm here today, ultimately, is to share a couple of great techniques from positive psychology that are really effective in helping people to bounce back from challenging times. And I figure amidst COVID, we could all do with a bit of that, really, couldn't we? So in today's session, I will give you a process for reversing a negativity spiral. I'll show you how to feel more joy in the present and make those moments last longer. And I'll show you how to boost your resilience and coping strategies. I've spoken a little bit about what positive psychology is. There's kind of 6 or 7 different areas within positive psychology. So obviously I can't cover all of them here. So I'm going to focus on just 2. And Emma's presentation after this, I'm really excited to hear that, because she's talking about strengths, and strengths are a huge part of positive psychology. So there's tons of research out there to tell us the benefits of that. So does anyone know what a negativity spiral is? Give me a yes in the chat if you do. So when I say negativity spiral, I mean those times where things just stack on top of each other. So you get up late, you miss the train. Yeah, some people are saying yes. Quite a few people are saying yes. So
I think most of us are saying yeah, everyone.
yeah. So you miss the train, you're stepping dog poop on the way to work, the meeting goes badly, Pret haven't got your favourite sandwich, and then it's like, oh my God, I just want to go back to bed and start all over again. So it's a very common thing, and there's 2 things I want to tell you about negativity that will hopefully soften the blow a little bit. So negative emotions and events have a bigger impact on us than positive ones. So you're not being over dramatic when you experience these things. It's the way that our brains are wired. In terms of that impact, research varies, but it's between a 3-to-1 and a 5-to-1 ratio. So experiencing negative events and negative emotions is between 3 and 5 times greater than when we experience positive ones, which is quite significant, I think you'll agree. And then thirdly, I want to talk a bit about how our brains work. So they're actually wired to look for and detect danger, risk and threat. So there's a primitive area of our brain. You might have heard it called the monkey brain, or the lizard brain, the reptilian brain. It's just a primitive part of our brain that focuses on danger. It's basically there to protect us, to keep us alive long enough to procreate. So it's a very primal thing, and it basically hasn't kind of caught up with the modern day. So really interestingly, when we experience something that elicits that sort of fear response or a threat, it doesn't matter what it is. So it can be a social threat, not just a physical threat. So it's not just about being attacked by a saber-toothed tiger anymore. It can be about feeling, left out of an office conversation or something. So there's some great experiments that have been done about social exclusion, where people play a game on a computer believing that the players are in other rooms, but it's not, it's just computer generated. And you know, the game goes on, and then gradually the other players exclude the participant that's being tested, and using electrodes they can see that the part of the brain that's firing is that primitive part. So that social threat, that exclusion, lights up the same area of the brain that would do if we were in a kind of danger situation. So it's really interesting, and it elicits that fight, flight or freeze response. So if we know this, if we know that we're predisposed to look for what could go wrong, and when it happens, it affects us 3 to 5 times more deeply than when something positive happens, what do you think we need to do to address that? Any ideas? Let me know in the chat. If only a prep breakfast. I miss prep during lockdown. I've not had prep for donkey's years. Challenge our negative thoughts more. Have more positive experiences to offset the negatives or retrain our brains. Nice. Conscious stop the thoughts by focusing on good. You're certainly along the right tracks. So it is about positive emotions. So a whole load of research within positive psychology is centered around positive emotions and why they're important. Recognise the trigger emotion. Yeah, these are all great suggestions. But there's a lady called Barbara Fredrickson who's determined that positive emotions are a key component in happiness and subjective well-being. So if we think about as children, for example, we engage in a lot of play, and play helps us to build those kind of physical, intellectual, social abilities, and it gives us a grounding for clear communication. It also encourages us to explore, and exploration is the base for knowledge and growth. So that's why those type of emotions are really important. When we look at things like contentment, in terms of a positive emotion, that's really key to helping us to expand our worldview and our view of ourselves, and that leads us to better social relationships and skills. So you can see how all of these things start to build. So Barbara's research, she developed a theory called the broaden and build theory in 1998. And the broadening effect is brought about by experiencing these positive emotions, because when we're open to more positive things, when we're curious, when we're excited, when we're joyful, when we are in awe, all of those great positive emotions broaden the horizon. They allow us to see things that we wouldn't normally see. And that's when great things and great changes can happen. So that's what this broadening effect is. It broadens our mind and allows us to disregard the automatic responses that we might normally make. So for example, if you think about when you're really on the up, when you're in a great place, emotion, and you're really happy, it's really easy to take more chances, to take a little bit more risk, to do something new and daring. Whereas when you're feeling afraid or fearful or threatened, things close down. You're only able to focus on the problem, not on a range of different creative solutions. So that's the broaden aspect. The build aspect is that by experiencing these things, by challenging ourselves, by taking more risks, by doing things differently and more creatively, we build some great resources. So we develop lasting physical, intellectual, psychological and social strategies that develop into coping strategies. So a good example is by experiencing these positive emotions, we might develop stronger and deeper relationships with people. And in terms of our resilience and coping mechanisms, that translates into more stable support networks. So that's an example of how it builds that resilience. And interestingly, the psychological broadening sparked by one positive emotion can increase your receptiveness to subsequent events. And that then increases the odds that you'll find positive meaning in the subsequent events as well, and experience additional positive emotions. So it's actually an upward spiral. The more positive emotions you can find and create, the more that you will develop. So it really acts, it's really effective in terms of counteracting those negativity spirals. I'm sending you, well, I'm not sending you, Keisha's sending you a little exercise that you can do after this. So it's all about seeking out positive emotions. So the idea being that you immerse yourself in this a little bit. Find ways to experience those positive emotions, and it's a great exercise to do with family, with friends, with kids if you've got any, because it just initiates some really fun, energizing conversations, and as I say, gives you a whole kind of arsenal really of different activities you can do that will generate those positive emotions. So how do we keep that train of thought going? Because there's something called hedonic adaptation, and this is where our brain gets used to the good stuff. So we need to find ways to keep giving it another kick and giving it another kick. So a good example of that is when you get the new iPhone, or you buy a new pair of shoes, you go out for a great meal. I always bring it back to food because I'm food obsessed. But all of those things are great in the moment, but they don't last. It's kind of it's a little high. It's a dopamine hit for a few hours, a few days, maybe a week, but then it's gone. And that's the process called hedonic adaptation. So to thwart hedonic adaptation, we need ways to keep those positive emotions going. So that's what I'm going to talk about next. Savouring and gratitude are the ways that we can increase those positive emotions and keep them going for longer. So when we focus on the small pleasures in life, when we attend to them, when we indulge in them, and when we really be present in them, we allow them to enhance the experience and they really magnify that experience. There's 3 ways that we can practice savouring and gratitude, and we can do it in the past, in the present, and in the future. So in the past, it's about reminiscing, going back to a really great time, a really great point in time where something special happened, something happy. And it doesn't have to be huge. These can be, you know, a funny joke, a little moment that you shared with someone, a kiss or a hug. It doesn't have to be big things. You can easily find them in the everyday, but go back, reminisce on it. If you're doing it in the present, do it in the present, be mindful, soak it all up as it happens. So, you know, rather than rushing out the door with a piece of toast in your mouth, give yourself that time to enjoy that piece of toast. Enjoy that gorgeous buttery loveliness that toast is. If you like me, and you indulge in real butter. But do it, don't multitask. Gratitude and savouring are not things to do in a multitasking way. It's all about immersing yourself in it. So use all of your 5 senses. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling? What are you tasting? You know, what do things feel like inside and in a kind of tactile sense? Really soak it up. And then future-wise, it's looking at what great things are coming, what's on the horizon, what are you really looking forward to in the future? These are great ways to practice savouring and gratitude. A couple of pointers for it. So you've got to be able to connect. So that means you need to be free from any urgent responsibilities. So it's not a good thing to try and practice savouring and gratitude when you're trying to watch a TV show, unless you're wanting to savour that particular TV show, maybe. Eating the toast on the go, that's a prime example of. Or things like eating popcorn or eating crisps while you're watching TV, because you're at the end of the bag, and then it's kind of like, it's not really enhanced the viewing experience, it's just kind of added to your waistline and you've not really enjoyed the crisps or the popcorn. So do things in turn, immerse yourself in that one activity at a time. Next thing, make sure that your physical and psychological needs are met as well before moving into savouring and gratitude. So things like, I'm desperate for a wee. It's not conducive to savouring a beautiful moment. Things like being really hungry. Again, you can't focus, you can't concentrate and do stuff when you're thinking, oh my God, I'm starving. What's for tea? No, it's distracting. And emotionally, you know, sort of psychologically wise, things like having a huge row. Again, it's not in the best frame of mind to be able to do your best work in terms of that gratitude and savouring piece. So very quickly, I'm almost at the end now, so I don't want to encroach on Emma's time, but savouring is a great way to build those memories. The more we revisit and imagine, our brain deepens those connections. So what we're trying to do is affect that balance. So I said about the brain being wired towards threat, it's also wired to reward. So the more ways that we can reward our brain, it starts to build neural pathways, and it enjoys being rewarded as much as it enjoys looking for threat, if that makes sense. So yeah, the more positive experiences you can feed it, the more it will give you those dopamine hits, and the more it will embed those links so that you can do that. It's a great way for self-congratulation as well. I think as women, we're very often not the best at celebrating ourselves, and savouring is a great way to do that. So revel in those successes. You know, think about those little wins. I'm always talking to my clients about celebrating little wins, because it's so easy to just gloss over it, and I'm the worst for that. To be honest, so I actually have a jar, and I write down my wins as they happen in real time, and I put them in this jar, and then at the end of the week I go back and I look at them and I think about all these great little micro moments that I've had that have made my week brilliant and really, really rewarding. So do that, savour on it. It intensifies experiences, so the more we dwell on, the more we take in every exquisite little detail, the more intense an experience becomes, and the more we'll get those little ding, ding, ding moments in our brain in terms of that reward, that dopamine hit. And gratitude is just a progression of that. So while savouring is immersing yourself in the moment, in the joy of these things, gratitude is all about being thankful for that moment. Being grateful, and acknowledging how lucky we are to have experienced that, and taking real joy and feeling blessed in those little things. Because if we can feel blessed in the everyday, the bigger things get so much easier, and the everyday is very easy to find. So in summary, that's given you a process for reversing a negativity spiral. It's shown you how to feel more joy in the present and make moments last. So the positive emotions exercise that's coming out to you after this session, have a go with that. I'd be really interested to see how you get on. And thirdly, it's given you a way to boost your resilience and coping strategies with that broaden and build theory and those upward spirals or upward positive cycles. So we've covered off all those three things. And the last thing is how and where to find me. So I'm on Facebook. I have a group there just for women. I've got my profile and my business page on Facebook, and then I've got the two things on LinkedIn as well. So my profile and my company as well. So please do connect. It would be lovely to hear from you. That's me done. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Nick. That was brilliant. We've had some comments. So try the Miracle Morning. That's one that you talked about the other week with me.
Yes, Miracle Morning is great.
Great book and great routine. So that's from Neela. Hi, Neela. Welcome. Yeah, we were talking about this book the other week actually, and just what a difference it makes to have that routine and that start to the day, and the whole savers method. But yeah, if you haven't read that book, I really would.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing that routine for, Neela?
Oh, since we started lockdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, when I started, I was getting up late and, not getting up early and got into a really bad routine, and found out about this book, and it is really great, and it's really great to set yourself up, and you have that hour of your time and gives you time to reflect. And meditation is brilliant. I've actually introduced it to my teams as well.
Really?
Yeah, so we do I do like a minute of there's a few meditation routines. They only take about a minute to 3 minutes. So I found that my energy levels were dipping at lunchtime. So we used to do like a meditation routine in the afternoon, and it just wakes you up again and re-energizes you. Meditation's really good.
No, I think it's really good to have a good structure and just starting your day up in the right way. It's all around like gratitude, isn't it? Affirmations, visualization. It says like exercise, scribe. So yeah, it's a really good method. It's called the Savers, where each letter obviously means something else. You can either Google it or get the actual book so you can see the mindset behind it all. We had some really great comments. So when you're talking about the jar, so my colleague calls that I've missed it. I think Amber used to just put it, but now it keeps going. My colleague calls that the folder a smile file, so that's nice. Louise has put, I advise my team to always keep all positive feedback emails in a folder somewhere and read it when struggling for motivation. And I think it is just that shift in mindset thing, isn't it? If you're having a dip, remind yourself how great you are, or even like some great comments that you've had from a client or from a customer or whatever it might be, or even a colleague, just to remind yourself, you know what, I am good. This was just like a low moment I've had, and just switch it around. But yeah, like Nick, you should be able to maybe comment back to some of these when Emma's doing her talk.
Yeah, I will do.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you so much, Nick. Emma, are you okay to share
Emma's
your
works better.
screen?
I am, yeah. I'm going to show you my little jar. I have a jar that I have little notes in. Actually, I didn't put notes in. This was given to me with positive notes in it. So yeah, it's things that I can take out and read in there. Awesome.
I brought a jar into Crimson. Do you remember, Lou? I brought it in. It's on someone else's desk now. I ended up giving it to someone else. But I said, let's just put some things in here. And I think it's on one of your team's desks now. It
became a bit of a silly jar, though, if I'm completely honest. But laughter and smiling all the time is as important. So, but yeah, I was just on that point, Emma. Often when my team and I get together on our sort of quarterly sort of gather, skills conference, we call it, we have sort of post-it notes, and I get all the team before we start and talk about any strategy or projects. I get all the team to take a post-it note and write the person that's really inspired them for that last month or something, and then we put them all in the hat, and obviously then we divvy it all up, and then the top 3 people get, and then someone sort of says why they put that person forward, and it's just a really nice way of just sort of taking a moment just to think about someone who particularly either really encouraged them, really inspired them, and obviously everyone then gets really positive feedback back. So that's quite a nice thing to do as well. But that was really good. Thank you, Nick, and fabulous hair again. Just
yeah, thank you.
I say this for every time I speak to her. I'm always like, I just love it. Personal brand on point. Emma, if you're okay to share your call.
Can you see my screen?
Oh, yes.
Yay!
I can. I hope everyone else can.
Can everyone else see it? Give me some.
Please say yes, or just come on. Yeah.
Yeah, wicked. Okay, I've got my my phone to the side of me. I think Crimson have got some really good tech security on their teams where I can't actually go into full present mode and see the chat. So I have actually got my phone. So if you see my eyes going all over the place, that is why. So yeah, I'm going to do a session, as Nick mentioned, looking at strengths. So first, I'm going to give you a little bit about myself, and I thought I'd share with you my personal vision board that I actually have on my phone. I look at it constantly to keep me focused. So as you can see at the top there, I have a husband and a daughter who I live with in South Wales. Possibly something a lot of you can, I think all of my friends can kind of dial in with as well. You can see the top right, I'm trying to lose weight after lockdown. I have more than one lockdown stone that I have brought with me in the last year. So I've just completed my couch to 5k. Can't believe I've done it. If you haven't tried it, if you're not a runner, just do it. Honestly, go with the program. It's been brilliant for me. And then I've got some other images of things there that I'm really hoping I can get back to doing after we've come out of this crazy world, including going on holiday, going out with my friends, and getting back up to Leeds to watch my beloved football team, Leeds United. Hope that hasn't offended anyone who's not a Leeds fan. But you'll also see there I've got a quote. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's a quote that I read from Dr. Wayne Dyer, who was an author and the first person that really got me thinking about mindset and being positive. I think it was maybe about 18, 19 years ago now that I first started reading his books, and they've been really inspirational to me. In fact, he also wrote children's books, and I've bought them for my daughter now and read them to her. So yeah, if you're interested in reading that type of thing, definitely look up Wayne Dyer. He's got so many things that are really inspiring. You'll also see at the top in the middle there, I've got the statement, it's not my work, it's my passion. And I actually made a change to my work life last year. Craziness maybe, but I made the decision to leave my job in the corporate world and to actually go with a very 21st century portfolio career. So it's allowed me to still carry on with some of the things that I love from my corporate job. I've worked in the tech industry for 20 years now, but I've also now been able to involve a lot of my passions and my values and ethics into other things that I do within the portfolio. So that brings me on to creating Levelation, my company that's focused on well-being, both from a tools and coaching perspective, and I look to help both individuals and also businesses. So if you wanted to work with me from an individual perspective, the types of things that I would do alongside coaching is provide you with well-being reports, which you can continually update and see how you track. It gives you recommendations as well of things that you can do to help some of the areas that maybe you're kind of falling back on at any point in time. Also, as Keisha mentioned at the top, I'm a certified strength scope practitioner. You can see on the screen there, this is the type of personal, or an extract of the type of personal report that you get when you do strength scope. This is something that absolutely changed my life when I got involved in it. I was introduced to strength scope myself as a coachee when I was also in a Women in Tech program, and it made such a difference to me that's really what compelled me to start Levelation, and I'll go into a bit more about strength scopers as we go through. And also I work with businesses, as I mentioned, so not only would I work with businesses to offer all of those individual type packages to employees, but also I have a portal which helps to build a well-being strategy, and that portal, as you can see on the screen there, also does amazing things like relate it to bottom line, which is obviously so important. As much as well-being is important, businesses are always going to be interested in the bottom line, so that tool and the strategy that we will put together helps to contextualize that. So whether you're looking at setting up a wellbeing program for the first time, or whether you've already got a wellbeing program in place and you're wanting to measure how effective that is, then that tool is absolutely fantastic for that. Right, enough about me and my business. So let's look at the reality. And while we're on this screen, Holly's going to pop a little poll in the chat. So I'm very much a data person. And so I thought I would add this because, yes, it's all great for me to tell you that well-being is important and it's important in the workplace. But why is it? Is that just my perception? No, it's not. As you can see on here, there are some very compelling stats on here. If you look at the first one, for example, like half of millennials, 75% of Gen Zers, I would love to be in either of those categories and I'm not, but they have left their job because of mental health reasons. And I was thinking about this, and you think about the world that we're in now. We've got a lot of AI and machine learning going on in our everyday lives, whether it's a sneaky lockdown purchase on Amazon and then it's got another little cheeky, you should buy this because you'll also love this. This is what these generations are growing up with. The Gen Zers have known nothing different. So actually thinking about when they go into an organization for the first time, when they start their careers, they're going to be thinking that this is kind of the norm. I would just expect that people know about me personally, that they have a profile around me. So actually being able to start day one with those individuals, understanding their strengths, understanding their well-being, and actually adapting to them, making them feel really understood, making them feel engaged, and also making them more productive. Like, as you can see on the other two stats here, you could increase productivity by 18% when you focus on mental health and well-being. You can optimizing strengths can actually increase engagement by up to 73%. And that's not just, that isn't relating to a study on millennials and Gen Zers, that applies to all of us. So taking this through our career journeys is really going to be valuable. Let me have a little look what we're saying in the chat. So the question was, do you feel more supported by your employer from a wellbeing perspective today than before COVID? And it seems like it's the most popular consensus is about the same, which is interesting because I think lots of us as individuals are thinking more about our well-being now. So yeah, as you can see, that's another reason why I'm so passionate that we actually get organisations to think about this too. But today we're going to look specifically at the strengths element. And as I mentioned, StrengthScope was a game changer for me. I've done things like Insights, Myers-Briggs. I'm sure lots of you have done those types of personality profilers, and I learned so much from them, but I just felt like there was something missing. I wasn't unlocking everything from me. And this is where StrengthScope really gave me the tools, I guess the personal insights, the approach, to help me go on what they call the path of possibility. And this, I talk about this in a work context, but I actually kind of follow this every day in my personal life as well. So let me just go through this path of possibility here. So it's about how we start our conversations, what emotions that then reacts to, how that affects our performance, and what the results could be of that. Now, I'm somebody who suffers with anxiety, and so StrengthScope for me was really something that helped me with that, because it put me in this positive frame of mind. If you think you start the day or going through your day and you're engrossed in things and you're feeling very positive, then that's going to have a knock-on effect with things, as Nick was saying earlier. And I mean, if you take an example of dialogues we have, you can use either the idea of a dialogue you have internally with yourself or with your teams in their in their review meetings. It's so easy to fall in the trap of what we call negative bias, a bit like what Nick was saying about that negative spiral. You have your performance conversation and you go, oh, great. Yeah, Emma, you've done very well at XYZ. Let's park that. Let's talk for the rest of the time about the things that you need to develop. And even though that's intended to be a very supportive conversation to help with development, it's very easy to fall into that trap on that bottom line with it talking about weaknesses, threats and problems, and then going down that slippery slope there where actually you come out of that meeting potentially feeling more disengaged and self-doubting than when you went in there. So that's why I now put a strengths focus when I'm talking about my weaknesses and how I'm going to develop in those areas. And so that's what we're going to focus on now. So firstly, to understand what strengths are. Now, in the respect of what I'm talking about with StrengthScope, strengths are not skills. And by skills, I mean something that can be learned. So you could say, for example, I'm a bit of an Excel lover. So people could look at me and go, oh, well, one of your strengths, Emma, is Excel. Where actually the thing that I do to use my Excel skills are the things that are actually my strengths. The strengths are the things, the qualities that energize us and enable us to perform at our best. And I use the analogy on this all the time of imagine you're getting to your lunch break, or it's the end of the day, or someone's trying to interrupt you for whatever reason. You're like, no, I'm in my flow. I'm totally in my zone. Those things, that's your strength. It's when you've completely got your mojo, you're in your zone, you're flying through what you're doing. It's not one of the things that you're like having to drag yourself to do. And strengths are natural. So these are things that you're going to naturally tend to do. And what we're talking about in terms of development and putting a strength lens on things is that you look at how you can take those strengths and actually take them to the things that you're having to drag yourself to do, or you're being kind of highlighted as development areas for you. So and I will be giving you afterwards a PDF that shares some more of these details. So don't worry if you don't write things down as I'm talking, but if any of these do resonate, then please put them down in the chat. So we've got emotional strengths. We're talking about things like courage, emotional control, enthusiasm, optimism, resilience, self-confidence. The relational strengths are things like collaboration, compassion, developing others, empathy, leading, persuasiveness, and relationship building. And then we have execution, decisiveness, efficiency, flexibility, initiative, results focus, and self-improvement. And then the thinking quadrant there is common sense, creativity, critical thinking, detail orientation, and strategic mindedness. So you can see when I talk about those strengths, and I talk about something like a skill, like Excel, for example, my strengths actually come from my perspective when I look at my significant strengths within that, within those categories, are the fact that I'm detail orientated. So the fact that I love data and a strength of mine is being detail orientated actually is where my strength comes from an Excel perspective. I've just learned to use Excel. I hope that kind of resonates with you, and you can think about the types of tasks you're doing and then those qualities within you that are actually making you excel and energize when you're doing those tasks, and equally the things that are draining you and really having to drag you through that. You see, Keisha's identified a few of hers there, which is fantastic.
I'm just talking about myself.
That's all good. We have to talk about ourselves. And so here's the strength scope wheel. So you saw a brief snippet of this earlier. And when we're talking about strengths, again, we're not talking about things that you're good or bad at. This is just giving you a bit of a scale of how powerful these things are in energizing you. And the other thing to think is that your strengths can actually be risks as well. So it's really important to be aware of your strengths in terms of your energizers and your drainers, but also be mindful with what you're doing with each of those as well. Because if you overuse a strength, that can actually have a negative output on what you are doing. So if we take, for example, compassion is one of my strengths, maybe the reason why I'm so passionate about doing something like this and helping others. But if I go into overdrive with my compassion, then I could end up forgetting about myself. So I'm very aware of that, and I make sure that I make me time, whether that's, we were talking earlier about meditation. So again, I've mentioned my couch to 5K, doing things like that. I take time out to have a bit of a self pamper. I mentioned detail orientation. So if that goes into overdrive for me, I am at risk of not delivering a project on time effectively because I could get too preoccupied with all the detail and with everything being perfect. So I have to think about how I dial my other strengths within that wheel to make sure that I'm delivering something on time, that I'm not kind of overthinking everything. And I just have to think, is something good enough? And then I can get it out, else I'll be there forever, like I was with this presentation. So here's some things to think about in terms of looking ahead to the next year, because I think this is quite a poignant point in the year, even though we're not at the start of the year per se, but we've just come from the end of a lockdown. We're about to go into a whole load of new changes. I'm sure there's things that we can all look back on and see the types of tasks we were doing, situations that we were put in, and what really helped us through that, from those qualities I mentioned before, or what did we really struggle with. By all means, again, if you want to put those
I think Lou just had her hand up. Did you want to ask something?
Sorry, I can't see that on
no, that's why I just thought I'd tell you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Keisha, thank you. I'm so sorry. It was just while you're on that last bit, Emma.
Yeah.
I was really interested. I'm a bit of a talker, and I know it's a trait of mine in terms of my working strengths and all of this, and being a high eye and all of that malarkey. But often I'm very mindful of how that can come across as quite forceful and quite kind of. And I was just really interested in what you were saying about how sometimes your strengths can become a little bit of a risky thing. And it was just really just trying to get a little bit extra thought from you, really, as to when you find yourself in that moment where you're getting a bit carried away, or something's quite, I don't know how it reacts in yourself, but you've talked about the meditation and stuff, but in flight, in the moment, how can you rein yourself, how can you bring yourself back to it?
Okay,
really,
I get you.
I know it sounds really daft, but it's like when you're kind of in that day and you've got such a lot on and you're throwing yourself through your whole momentum, where and how can you pause, and how often, and what techniques?
So I totally get that, and and my recommendation for that is, firstly, I mean, you've got to get to the point where you understand your strengths. So you can either do that and your drainers, right? So you can either do that with kind of the list I've given you and try to, and will be giving you, and try to work that out yourself. Maybe do a bit of a map across a week, looking at different tasks you're doing. How do you feel energized? Like, you know, almost like plot it on a graph. Look, I'm back to Excel again.
Create a little picture, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And then just make a note against each thing, and then you can go back to it at the end of the week and go, oh look, when I was doing this task, like this was happening, or like my energy levels or whatever. But I think taking that time out to understand it, I mean, obviously I'm more than happy to work with you as well to get you a personalized report from StrengthScope, and we can work through that. But I do think it's about taking that time out to reflect, and also to get feedback, and as well with the StrengthScope reports, one of the bolt-on options that we can do with that is actually a 360, and it's really refreshing how they do that, because they send out feedback forms to people that you would nominate, as you do with lots of other reporting, but they focus the questions on your significant strengths. And so it's really helpful to come back where you get these different perceptions from people of if you're actually under or over utilizing your strengths. But I think in terms of looking at things in flight, it's all about kind of the prep and building yourself up with that mindset.
No, I understand. I absolutely hear you. And we do a lot of the feedback things often, actually, as part of my role managing a team now. But you're right, it's that in-flight thing. I suppose something I have learned over the last year is sometimes not to do anything, because it's very tempting to try sometimes and put a rubber stamp, you know, fix everything and put a plaster on everything. But I have sort of, I think, self-taught over the last year to sometimes just sit back, and my natural instinct is to try and fix and try and sort something out and react to something, but actually just sometimes taking that moment to just sit back, often it will work itself out as well. So, but thank you anyway. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the fact that you're aware of it is the first step, right? and then it's to just be in the moment and be very conscious of what you're doing and other people's reactions, because like I said, a lot of things are perception, right? So the way that you perceive you might be coming across might be different to how someone else perceives you.
And that emotional intelligence and empathy is really no, thank you.
Exactly.
Thanks,
and I think in terms of, it's great that you're doing that feedback thing with your teams. Maybe just look at tweaking some of the questions with them, in terms of, like I said, similar to how StrengthScope do it, with picking out some of their strengths from those qualities and asking questions specifically around that. Again, doesn't go into that negative bias, but you can start to look at how you can nurture the things that come naturally to people, but then be focused on, like you say, just dialing some things down a little bit. And it is about the awareness.
Sure. And something I'm doing actually with my own coach and mentor is because one of my objectives is obviously to develop leaders in my team. So I've asked my mentor Simon to actually interview 4 of my direct reports and actually get feedback from them on me. And he was like, "You sure you want me to do that?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't care." But it was because I genuinely want to develop others. But hopefully that's, by sharing, that's helped some of other people here as well. So I'll let you crack on.
We had some other comments saying from Amber Thomas, "I had a face-to-face meeting on Friday and I definitely overtalked Wink and Laura. I'm worried that I will be an excitable puppy when I get back in front of Christmas physically. I need to manage that energy." So I think you're not alone there, Lou.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be such diverse energy from people, right? Because there's going to be some people who are still very scared about leaving their houses, right through to the people that are going to be sat on the doorstep of Wetherspoons waiting for it to open when it's able to. So I think we all do need to be mindful of how people are going to react, and not go out there jumping on and hugging customers the second we're allowed to. Cool. So just going on to my tips here then. So talk about looking ahead. So once you've identified what your energizers are, you need to highlight those, as we were just talking about. Be aware of them and take them with you, but don't forget to keep an eye on not going into overdrive. And then also, you want to manage your energy. So find your joy in your day every day. There's going to be things that we do that we don't enjoy. We can't completely eradicate that, but make sure you're dialing up your joy and your energy as much as you can do. So if you're a relational oriented person, from those qualities we talked about, You want to make sure you're putting time in your day to connect with people. Maybe you're a thinking preference, so make time for thinking and for problem solving in your day. If you're more execution focused, get those to-do lists written and hammer your way through them. And also people who are more emotional oriented, time to enjoy kind of being self-motivated, self-sufficient, and use that energy to plan and deliver against what you need to execute. And also I think what's really important is to be aware of controlling the controllables and let go of what you can't control. So the other thing to think about then is owning your development. So know your why. Think about your personal purpose. Think about your workplace objectives and use those as your development focus. And be realistic. If you set yourself crazy goals, you're not going to stick to it. Bit like my weight loss journey and why it's been so up and down. But be realistic with what you're setting yourself. That's going to boost your energy as well as you're achieving things as you go through. Do it your way. We hear all the time at the moment, be your authentic self. It's such a buzzword, but I really genuinely believe that StrengthScope allows you to do that, to really understand and unlock your authentic self, and to bring the best of yourself that you can do. And also supercharge your strength. When you identify these strength qualities, you may find that there's something that you've maybe not nurtured as much, or you've taken for granted. So look at what you can do that and how you can boost that going forward. So coming to the end now, but before I finished, I wanted to share with you a few recommendations. I've given a couple things to read, to listen and to watch, because I know we're all a bit different in how we like to take in information. So firstly, 2 books that I love. And while I'm giving recommendations, please chuck any in the chat that you've got, because I'd love to hear. Oh gosh, my phone's gone flying. I'd love to hear what you've been watching, listening to. Right, Eat That Frog. Bit of a catchy title there, but that is so good for looking at things that are on your to-do list that are probably drainers, things that you don't want to be doing, and how to approach that. They call it about eating that frog, like the thing you don't want to do in a day. For me, reading that book, combining it with the StrengthScope approach, has really been beneficial for me. Then we've got Ikigai. I hear more and more people talking about Ikigai now. If you've not heard of it before, it's a Japanese word that means a reason for being. So if you're going deep and looking into what's my purpose in life, and this is a really good kind of philosophy thing. It's not a hard read book at all. That's a really good one to have a look through. Then some podcasts. Firstly, the High Performance Podcast, which is presented by Jake Humphreys and Professor Damian Hughes, and they interview people who have excelled in many different fields. It might be sport or music or business, and they share their lessons and experiences. There will be something for everybody on there. The most recent one is with Susie Ma, who I'm so grateful to work with my Tropic business, which is also part of my new 21st century portfolio of life. She is the most inspiring and positive person I've ever encountered. So if you only listen to one on there, I totally recommend to listen to Susie. She's an inspiration to me every day. And then the Strengths Guy, of course, I'm going to mention the Strengths Guy. This is Dr. Paul Brewerton, who founded StrengthScope, and he does a weekly podcast on a Monday, which will really get you started for the week. And then finally, a couple of things to watch if you haven't completed Netflix already. Self-Made, actually something that Susie Ma recommended to me recently. And this is a 4-part Netflix drama based on the story of the first self-made millionairess in the USA. And it was actually in the 1900s. I'd never heard the story before. I think we should all be aware of that, especially as women. And yeah, it's just a really great watch. And last but not least, the movie Pay It Forward. Not really in relation to strengths or anything, but just an amazing kind of pretense around that, and something that I try to take into my everyday life of how I engage with people, and hope that you'll feel that that's inspiring for you too. And then my last slide. I think I'm nailing this on time, Keisha. This is a miracle.
I'm really, I'm like, wow, we've got right on time.
Honestly, I always am most productive first thing in the morning. If you'd have asked me to do this at 7 o'clock at night, I would have been asleep.
That's why I did it in the morning.
Thanks.
No,
so yeah, I would love to talk to you more. As you can tell, I'm passionate about this subject. Whether you want to talk to me more in terms of engaging on working on something together, either as individual one-to-one or with your business, or if you generally just want to talk about this topic, I love kind of chatting around it, thinking about ideas and debating things. So I'm more than happy to speak to you about that. If you are interested in working together, I do a free 20-minute consultation, and I've also put a little offer in there for you lovely ladies, offering up your morning to spend with us today. And that's me.
Thank you so much. That was brilliant. And thank you, Nick. I think we've got some time for questions. So we both finished on time. So well done. I've got some in the, oh, hi. It's nice to be able to see everyone's faces now on the screen. Oh, Tasman's got a, oh, you got your dog. Cute. So we've got Amber Thomas. I guess we can be misunderstood, particularly as women in tech. A previous boss saw me as good at relationship building with internal clients. I think the strength underneath that was analytical and strategic about clients' needs thinking. I don't know if Amber, you wanted to expand on that, or is it me just reading it out?
Yeah, sure, I could. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I've certainly found all through my 20 years that I'm seen through the lens of interpersonal skills, sometimes more than seen through the lens of whatever is analytical, strategic, detail stuff. And I suspect that that's probably quite a common trait for women working in tech, when there's men that think, oh, she makes relationship building look effortless. That's obviously where she wants to be, and that's where I should put her. It's like, no, that'll completely drain me. Actually, that's not where I want to be at all. I'm wondering if anyone else has been in that position.
I think, Amber, that's really true, isn't it? And like I was saying before, where you get pigeonholed in a skill set because people look at the superficial skill set and not actually what's driving your energy to do that. Again, I know I always use the Excel one because it's just a very stereotypical one for me, but exactly the point that you're saying there, if you take a step back and look at why am I actually good at this task? Like, yes, I've learned it. Anyone can learn to do most things in life, but it's how much energy you put into that as to how successful you're going to be with it. And it's understanding those bits of energy, like you said, whether it's like the strategic mindedness or the analytical side of it is actually what you're getting out of the conversations, but people are just seeing other sides of it. That's a really great insight.
Has anyone else had anything similar to that at work? Maybe not then. No, thank you for sharing that, Amber. That was brilliant. I've had another, so Ayla, I think sometimes there is a perception that being female gives you certain inherent skill sets, and I think that's really true, isn't it? They say, oh yeah, females are usually good at this, or females are good at this. It's like, oh, I don't think I am. So I definitely do agree on that one. Has anyone else got any questions? You can either put them in the chat or raise your hand, whatever you feel most comfortable doing. It's nice to be able to see everyone on the screen like this. I think before, when the presentations are on, you can't really engage as much, so it's lovely to see you all. And I'm excited to see you all in person, so I hope you come to our in-person event when we can do it.
Laura's got her hand
Laura
up.
can see. Hi, Laura. And then I think Charlotte has after that, so.
Hi. Cool. Yeah, I'm really interested in this sort of happiness concept, and great stuff to talk about ourselves as well. During lockdown, I was listening to a podcast called The Happiness Half Hour, which is Bruce Hood, who's a professor at Bristol. And he's developed a module that they're actually using in a lot of universities to address mental health and well-being in students. And that, you know, so they're building that into any subject that's being studied at university. And it made me think it's the sort of thing we should be doing in the work environment as well, and putting people through this sort of well-being module. And he calls it happiness hacks, things that you do to help you you know, have more gratitude, be in the moment, and that kind of thing. So I've put the link to the podcast in the chat if you want to listen to it.
Thank you. I was just writing it down then. So yeah, I'll definitely listen to that. That's really good. I think everything like that is just so useful, isn't it? And I think, as we talked about, happiness mindset, it just has a knock-on effect to everything else that we do and how we show up. So thank you. Charlotte, did you have a question?
Yeah, and thank you for both those presentations. I thought there's some really interesting ideas there. I think it's interesting as women, you get so caught up in the quantity as well. You know, we're so busy across so many different streams at the moment. And when it comes to your businesses or what you're managing to handle, sometimes I think we don't take that step back, do we? We maybe don't take that step back. We're so busy implementing, delivering. And it's not just at work, it's at home as well. It's with our families, with so many things to so many people. But maybe we do need to spend that time just to look at ourselves as individuals as well. And I'm really interested in the strengths and drainers, actually. I think we end up spending too much time looking at how we should improve and our weaknesses, and just maybe not enough on actually what are the things that are energizing me. So I think that's a really interesting idea. So thank you.
No, I think that was a really good as well, a good comment from you, Charlotte. So thank you for that, and thanks for the feedback on the speakers. But I do agree on that, looking at your strengths and actually play to those strengths. And I was going to ask you a question, Emma, around that. So let's say in appraisals, what advice would you give to people managing a team, or even just for people in general, how they I know you kind of gone through some of it, but how you would really play to those strengths. To, let's say you needed to work on something, but you're not naturally something you're good at. How would you work on your strength to then get better at that, and how would you position that as a manager?
Absolutely. So the way to do that is, firstly, obviously, we understand what those strength qualities are. You can talk to the people in your team then about things that they've achieved, what they've enjoyed. Don't stray away from things about it all being about results. Talk about what they've enjoyed, because that's really going to pull out from them what these strength qualities are. Then once you've understood those, you can talk to them about the things that need to be developed. We're never a finished article, right? We can all develop somewhere. So if there's something that's really critical to their role, then look at how you can take some of those strengths that they're potentially not bringing to that task because they're approaching it in more of a negative way, because maybe they're going, oh my gosh, I've got to do copywriting today. I hate doing copywriting. So immediately they're going into the zone of, this is a real pain job to do. They're in a negative mindset and they're bringing all their drainers with them. But actually, if you start to look at how can you use some of those strengths to dial it, and I'll give you an example of my personal my biggest drainers. They're kind of my smallest things on my wheel, but my biggest drainers are self-confidence and decisiveness. So I could see that as soon as I saw that on the wheel. I'm like, yes, that's why in this situation, like, I'm not actually delivering something and I'm procrastinating, because I'm relying on my self-confidence to make a decision, and that's causing me real friction in my ability to execute. Whereas actually, courage and enthusiasm are two things that are really strong strengths for me. So when I'm in that situation that I can see that I would naturally kind of go into the zone of, oh, I'm not confident in myself and I don't want to make a decision around it, I actually just focus on, like today, for example, my focus is on my enthusiasm of talking about well-being and talking about strengths. It's not focused on me and whether I'm being a confident presenter or not. Hopefully I've come across okay. Self-confidence issue there. But I am just focusing on talking about something that's passionate to me. And so if I was kind of mixing those energizers and drainers the wrong way round, it could come up as a development need of, Emma, your presentation skills are no good. You're not very good at talking to people. Actually, that's not the issue. The issue is the self-confidence. And actually, so therefore, I just need to focus on my courage, which is my strength, and also my enthusiasm, and attack the tasks with those things dialed up.
I love that. Thank you. Tamsin, I'm really sorry if I got your name wrong the first time. Everyone gets my name wrong, and then I did it to you, so apologies. Have you got your hand up there?
Yes.
Your lovely dog.
Thank you. It's morning cuddle time, so came to find me.
My dog's actually being quiet now. I'm kind of thinking, what is he into? I don't know. I'll find out in a minute.
So I wanted to raise about imposter syndrome, because I think it covers across both the presentations, but and I kind of avoided it as a buzzword for a really long time and went, no, I'm not going to go down that route. It's a bit, stereotypical or whatever in the female, management. But actually, I've been spending a lot of time trying to turn it from a weakness into a strength. And I was just wondering, Nick, from a resilience point of view, what your thoughts were on that, or Emma from a strengths point of view.
Perfect, thank you. Should we go to Nick? I think you're. Yeah, perfect.
There we go. It's as if there's a really long delay on it. So I click it, nothing happens. I click it again, and then it comes on and goes off again. So yeah, imposter syndrome in terms of the resilience piece. It's all about, I'm going to encroach on Emma a little bit there, because it is about strengths. Ultimately, it is about dialing up what you are really great at, and making more of that. Positive emotions come into it quite a lot as well, because research shows that when you go into an activity or go into something that you're fearful of with a positive mindset, the outcomes are better, the chances of it going well are better. So if you always come at things with, what have I got to bring to this? So I like to use intention setting. So I read the Morning Miracle as well. I saw someone who put it in the chat. And for me, a big part of that is setting my intention for the day. And it doesn't have to take a long time. I literally just pick 3 words. And I'll show you. In fact, I write them on a post-it each day. You probably can't see the word in there. No, I think it's actually blanked me out for the background. But today's words were brave, authentic and trusting. So that was my intention for the day. I knew I had to dial up those sort of characteristics or those strengths to get me through. I wanted to be really authentic and be me and not be worrying about, will the technology work or not? And that's what the trusting element was. I just have to let that go and trust that things will work. Things didn't work, but if you put your trust in that they will, it's one thing off your plate. And it's exactly the same with that imposter syndrome. So I work with a lot of women who have that imposter syndrome to varying degrees. Some people it's very, very severe and it really is a condition. For others, it's just about confidence. It is just that we don't feel confident in certain scenarios, and it's all overcomable. You just have to work through it in a pragmatic way and look at what the beliefs are behind that. Does that help?
I'd agree with what Nick said. And when the Tech Women programme that I was in the other year, we had a big conversation about this. As you can imagine, everybody in the room felt that they were very strong in the imposter syndrome category. And we talked about how, and I am going to stereotype men and women here, and I make kind of no apologies for it, because I do think it is very stereotypical of this, that when you're looking at a job description, how many men look at a job description and go, I can do about 80% of that, I'll apply for the job? We as women, in a lot of cases, see 10 things in a list and go, oh, but that one at the bottom, I've not done that before, or I only did it once, I'm not going to apply for the job. But the guy goes for it and he still gets it. Now, that is them, in my mind, naturally going to their strengths. They're like, I can attack this, I've got enough. And they take that energy with them to focus on their strengths and the things that they can do out of that. Whereas, yeah, I think, however, genetically or anything, as women, we're immediately drawing ourselves into that negative bias. And it is kind of being aware of that and just starting to turn around that, do you know, actually we can probably do more things than the man that's looked at 80% of it and gone, yeah, I can smash that, I'm going to go and apply for it. But yeah, we're just tending ourselves again to be aware that not to go into that negative bias cycle, and to be honest with yourself about it. And it does take practice, right? We all naturally do it. But
I agree on that. I think what's helped me recently is realizing when I've done research around it, watched all the videos on it, is that actually so many, and books, I know there's some really great books about women and imposter syndrome, but so many successful women actually suffer with it, even like J-Lo, Beyonce. I'm like, oh, if they've got it, then it's okay, like, because it's kind of like a normal thing that we go through. And I think as you're striving to achieve, a lot of us are feeling the same way, and I think that's made me feel better. Like, actually, no, I am good at this, and if everyone that is pushing to those other levels are feeling the same, then we can do it. So knowing that you're not alone in it, I think will help too. I think, Lou, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I just listening to Emma there and reiterating with what you've just said, there was two things for me. How we feel and how other people feel has become more important than ever. And I think often there's times when I lead a team, and there's often times where maybe one of my members of my team are having some challenges and this, that, and the other, and they'll discuss it with me, and we have regular one-to-ones. And in my old self, I would have kind of thought, well, you know, why are you feeling that about? Because everything's right and this, that, and the other. And then I've learned to realise that it's regardless of what the context is, that if someone just feels in a certain way and has negative, you have to really just sometimes appreciate that it doesn't matter what and why, it's sometimes just how they feel. But interestingly, going back to what you were saying, Emma, about the 80% and the always focusing on the negative things, I've always been fortunate to have the opposite, but in an imposter syndrome way. Rather than feeling I'm not worthy, I almost just overthrow myself into something, fearless about, and I've always done that because naturally I probably have, if I don't throw myself into things, I would have probably avoided doing a hell of a lot in my career. But interestingly, my new neighbour in Inkborough, where I live in Worcestershire, she's just moved up from down south in November during the lockdown sort of time with her family. She had a business of her own before, and she sold it just before lockdown, moved up here. I happened to just bump into her and we just got chatting, and she said she was going for an interview. She said, but I'm not sure I'm going to take it, she said, because they want me to do full-time, and I haven't really obviously worked in a full-time role for a while. She said, I think I can probably do the role, to be honest, on 3.5, 4 days a week. It really is. And I just need a bit of flexibility for the children. And I just turned around to her and said, look, I work in recruitment. I said, you just need to tell them that. And she was like, really? And I was like, yes, so many businesses lose good people because they're so hung up on the individuals, the candidates fail to just say, I can do this job on 4 days a week. You only need to pay me for 4 days a week and I'll do this job for you, or I'll make 4 days. And she got the job, and she was so grateful for that advice, because she wouldn't have asked, she would have actually not applied. And she'd had an interview and she was thinking about rejecting it. And I think it's having that confidence to know to trust yourself, I think, like Nick said as well. So just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
And I think as well, Louise, on that point, I think we're at a stage now I think like COVID's been one of these like dynamic shifts in the world, right? The internet was before, and things like, well, you think about Blockbuster and different businesses that completely went out of business because they dug their heels in and said, I'm not going to evolve with the times. And I think, and also in the business world as well, and I know Keisha and I talk a lot about like the fact that I have my portfolio career now, and it's not uncommon. So many people have this now where they have multiple different careers that they do, and I think as we see people coming out of school and university and things, that's going to be the norm now. Like I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and she was saying about how her nephew he's already designing some clothes range, and then he works part-time in IKEA doing some stuff, and then he's doing something else, and that's just gonna what they're expecting. I think if businesses don't move with what is society now and what are people wanting from life, both personally and within work, that I think we will see the death of businesses more from adapting to that than to other things, to be honest.
I agree, and with technology as well, and all of the apps and the tools and the gadgets you can have to effectively run a business and to cost that and to do all the various things that you need to project manage that, it's really made so many more things so much more accessible. And you know, the amount of IT director contacts that I spoke to at the beginning of the pandemic, who literally overnight had gone from push, trying to get all of these things pushed forward, to then the business waking up as soon as the pandemic hit and realized why those individuals had been asking for all of these things to happen, all of a sudden getting all the approvals. You know, overnight, it was just a revolution. But going back to the flexibility comment, and obviously women have babies and you go through labour, it's a physical state, you know, and yet a lot of women have had to put some of their careers on hold in order to have families, and have chosen to do so, which is fantastic. But the flexibility then you want when you come out of that motherhood into work again is what some people crave for, and to date it's been very difficult. And I think hopefully the pandemic has completely revolutionized the fact that there are no walls now, and people can have much more of a clear and, like you say, a sort of varied career path. So that's been a great thing for me.
I just noticed what Amber, like similar to that, talking about the male-female divide, what Amber's put on. And actually, Amber, that was a conversation my husband and I had recently about how there's so much talk about like empowering women and thinking about women needing to have more flexibility at work and everything. And Geraint, my husband, sat there watching the news one night and he's like, why don't they just look at helping make things more flexible for the men? Like, why does it have to be about the women having to be flexible and having to be mums and having to do like the lion's share of things, where actually maybe what needs to happen is the men need to be allowed to have that option to do what we're trying to allow women to do. So I absolutely love that you put in there, Amber.
Yeah. I'm just conscious of time now, unless Amber, you wanted to make a comment on that. Apologies.
Just to say, it's interesting over COVID how people's personal lives have become more visible, and you realise so many people have got responsibilities, parents, children, pets,
real people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
I think it has become much more human, like with dogs in the background, kids, like partners, and I think everyone's become much more personal and actually realising, even though you're in that position, we're all just people, and we all have jobs, and we're all like do working and kind of have our life, and it's been more real to see. So I do agree on that. Thank you for that comment, and thank you everyone for your questions and comments. They've been great, and I love how supportive this group is, so thank you so much, ladies, and thank you to our amazing speakers, Nick and Emma. I will follow up with you all and hope you're all okay with that, just with the takeaways that Emma and Nick have got, the kind of worksheets and things that they've got to send to you as well. And I will, if you're happy to, I can share your details so they can send it on directly. And we are doing these once a month, so keep an eye on your emails for next month. We have got it. April 29th is the next one. We're going to put it on the website next week, but if you want to just put it in your diary, it's going to be 8:30 a.m. again until 10 a.m. But we will send out the invites next week. I'm just getting all that finalised. But thank you so much, everyone. I appreciate you coming this morning, and have a great day. And if you've got any topics that you want us to talk about in the future, just send them over to me, because I'm happy to hear about them, and I want to make sure it's for you as much as for the whole community as well. Thank you all, and see you soon.